Welcome to the Raising Confident Girls podcast, your guide to raising strong, confident daughters. I'm Melissa Jones, the founder of Girls Positivity Club and a teacher for over 20 years. In a world where girls often feel overwhelmed, anxious, and confused, this podcast is your go-to space. As caregivers, we navigate challenges together. I founded Girls Positivity Club to provide a place where you belong and get the tools to face today's hurdles. Consider this your regular check-in with a trusted friend, offering insights and practical tips for meaningful conversations. I'm here to help you feel confident on this journey of raising a generation of empowered girls. Let's dive in and raise those confident girls together. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Raising Confident Girls. I am Melissa, your host, and I am here to help you raise that generation of confident girls, whether it is your daughter, your niece, any girl in your life. That is what I'm here for. And today's episode is a topic that I've talked about before, but in a different lens. So in episode 31, I was talking about being bossy versus a leader and how girls can be viewed as bossy when they're trying to take on leadership roles. And there are a lot of reasons for that. If you didn't get a chance to listen to that episode, it is episode 31. You can just look back and it's bossy versus leader. Before we get into the episode, I just want to thank you for not only listening, but also sending this podcast to other parents of girls, caregivers of girls. I hear from moms occasionally on Instagram and the DMs. And I just received the nicest message last week, a few days ago, really. And just about, a really good takeaway that this mom had gotten from the episodes and how she is sharing this with her friends and people that she wants to help as well. And we're in this all together. That's really the purpose, is we want to help raise that generation of confident girls so that they turn into confident women. And that's the mission of Girls Positivity Club. So thank you for being here. And the biggest compliment is if you can send this episode or this show to a parent or caregiver of a girl who it could help. That is the whole point of doing this. And I always also love to hear from you about topics. So this mom in particular wrote in about a topic that I've never talked about before. So that's going to be coming down the road and not too far in the future. But I'm excited to talk about this new topic. And it really is the best way for me to serve you, is to hear from you. If there is a topic that I haven't covered or you'd like me to do it again, but in a different way, I always, come back to, for example, leadership, today's topic, in a new way. And really, we do this in Girls Positivity Club as well, is we have pillars that our lessons are based off of, that I teach the girls or that my leaders teach the girls who run the clubs. And it really is that repetition, but also doing it in a new way. So if it's a lesson on mindset, it's not the same exact lesson every time, same activity. It's a new spin on it or another situation, way to look at it. So this one is helping girls overcome self-doubt in leadership, because this is something that is very common in girls, is having that self-doubt in a leadership role, because they can tend to think you have to be a certain way to be viewed as a leader. And I think I always try and go back to my experience in teaching and also in working with the girls at present day. That's why I always keep one club or do a camp or something, because I always want to be in with the girls so that I know what's relevant for them. And then I can pass that on to you. So one example when girls will have self-doubt is when there's a group project. And this is common at all ages. So sometimes there will be this group project where you have to work together, you have to collaborate, and there are not necessarily roles established. And it's either figuring out who the leader is going to be in the group, and also what that means. That's a whole thing with teaching, is like teaching kids how to do that and supporting them in that. Because if you don't, it'll be the same kids that are always leading the groups. So that's one way that it can go. And another is when leaders are assigned and they're not the typical person chosen to be the leader. So here's what I mean. Let's say there's a quiet girl or a girl who normally wouldn't be the leader, like a natural leader in class per se, like the way that maybe the kids would see it, raising her hand all the time, volunteering all the time, really being confident and speaking up. That's one way that girls can be leaders, but there are lots of other ways. And so sometimes what teachers will do is choose kids that they think will really thrive in the leadership role, but they don't ever take that opportunity themselves because they might have a little self-doubt or they're shy or something like that. And what I've heard from girls is that when they're put in that position, they can feel that discomfort. They can feel uncomfortable because they're not used to it. And also, and especially if they have people in the group, boy or girl, who is normally, quote unquote, the leader of the class, they feel intimidated by that. And they feel like, well, they're normally the leader, so they're probably just going to take over. So I'll just do the bare minimum and then I'll step back and let them take over. Because when someone is that natural leader, I'm sure some of you listening, you might have a daughter who is a natural leader and like this isn't an issue for her. But what I hear more times than not is it's the opposite. So when your daughter is a natural leader, the hardest part for them is pulling back and letting other people lead, especially if it's not in a way that they necessarily agree with. It doesn't mean it's wrong, but just I think there's a whole, that's maybe another podcast episode when you do have a leader as a girl, helping her navigate how to also help other girls have voices. But this is when she'll kind of step back and make herself a little bit small because that other person, it's a comfort for them to be the leader. And she may just step back and let that happen naturally, even though it's her assigned role. So I have heard that from a girl, and I talked with her about it and asked like why she would step back and kind of let that person take over when that wasn't their role necessarily. And it really was that she was feeling that self-doubt. She didn't know how that person would take it. And I have a situation where it was a boy and a girl. So gender aside, there are just people who, especially girls, who feel like they have to be a certain way to be a leader, and they can start to doubt themselves if they think that it's not looking the way it's supposed to. And really the reason that that can create self-doubt is because they have a fear of judgment. And this isn't only middle school and older girls. This could be younger girls. It just depends. But they don't want to be seen. It is especially common once they start puberty. And puberty is such a wide range. Like it can start as early as like 8 or 9, and it can start as late as, into their teens. So they don't want to be judged as too bossy, too loud, too passive, not the best at something. So I would see this when I would maybe put a girl as a leader in a certain group project and I knew she had the potential. And what I would do if I knew that this girl was reluctant to be a leader is I would coach her beforehand and give her like a little pep talk and prepare her, like telling her ahead of time, not always, but it depended on the situation. But there were some times when I would say to the girl like, hey, I really think you've been doing amazing in this area. I think that you would be such a great leader. Here's what I was thinking, and like set that expectation up so that she wasn't shocked by it. And I would not hover and try and take over that group if it didn't go the way that was planned. Like maybe even tell her, there might be someone in the group who is upset that they're not the leader because they usually are, but I want you to know that I have confidence in you and I know you can do it, and just support her in that way, because maybe she's not the best at that certain thing, but that's not why she's put in that leadership role. And it's opening their eyes to leaders are all different ways. And it doesn't mean that you have to be the very best player, the very best at that subject, or you're always perfect at this one certain thing, or the loudest, or the one that is the most popular. It is because there are all types of leadership. There is quiet leadership that's very powerful. There's creative leadership. There's all kinds of categories. And so it's opening her eyes to this. And, that is the problem, is that they can only see it one way. And there can also be a lack of female leadership. So, especially if in her classroom, especially in math, not always, but especially in math and science, those tend to be male dominated subjects. And so, when there is a good math student or a good science student, or any area really, but when it is that other gender, it can seem like the boys are always really outspoken in this one area, or they're always the ones chosen for these projects. And so seeing female teachers that are in that role, or girls that are on the robotics team, or whatever it is, or having an interest in STEM and STEAM, and it's really noticing that and having that be part of her life as well. But not seeing it is a problem. And then there's also a problem of the pressure of being liked over being assertive. So sometimes girls will see leadership as, oh, I have to be the boss of the group. And I might have to tell my friend who's in the group, or someone in the group that I really like or want to be friends with, that they have to do a certain thing, and they may not like it, or they may not like the way that I'm running the group, or whatever it would be. That pressure of being liked and saying to themselves, because girls have told me this, oh, I need to give my friend this one thing to do in the group because that's what she's really good at and that's what she really likes to do. If I give her something different to do, if that leader is in charge of assigning tasks, normally it's more of a collaborative thing, but just as an example, she might worry that they'll be mad at her after the project is over, or even during the project, and have some kind of backlash. And I have been doing, like I said in previous episodes, some research on these topics because I think it is good to know some statistics that go with it. And I love Always. I think they do such great campaigns with girl empowerment, women empowerment, and Always, like the feminine products. And they did that Like a Girl campaign, run like a girl, all those things, and like it being a strength instead of a weakness, which I love so much. But they did a study, and 50% of girls in this study, there were lots of girls that were in this study. I don't know the exact number, but I know that they wouldn't just say it about 2 girls or something. 50% of girls lose confidence during that puberty time, making reluctance in leadership a norm. So 50%. And that is way too high of a number, especially because puberty, your body's changing in all kinds of ways, and it can feel so uncomfortable. You can feel uncomfortable in your own skin, and it's really helping support them through that time and before and after. And I want to help you change that. 50% is way too high of a number of girls that are reluctant to be leaders. And so, as always, I want to give you a lot of good tips that you can use in your life with your girls, because you might say, well, Melissa, when they go to school, I can't always control exactly the type of leadership they're put in, or things like that. But what we can do is support them at home to give them the tools so that when they go to school, they can have some things in their toolkit and know what to do in certain situations. And then again, I'm always going to talk about that open communication and having those regular check-ins with the girls in your life, because that's where the power is. And sometimes it comes at the most unexpected time. My teenager last night sat with me on the couch and just talked about things that I didn't expect out of the blue. And so you never know when it's going to happen and when that safe time feels for them. And a lot of times, like I've said before, a lot of times those conversations have happened for me in the car and in the later evening, close to bedtime, because they start to get reflective about their day. So taking advantage of those moments and opportunities to have those conversations. And when they lead them, especially, and when they bring them up, because you've developed that muscle of having those constant conversations. And again, not like an interrogation, but just checking in with them and trying different ways to check in. it really makes them feel like you're a safe person and that you're warm and can be approached with any topic, even though if sometimes they bring something up, you're like, oh, I did not know we were going to talk about that. So here are some tips that you can try and let me know what you think. So I use the acronym LEAD. So the first one is the L in LEAD, which is lift her up by recognizing leadership potential and recognize it isn't always the loudest and most confident person. Leadership comes in lots of different ways, and there's quiet leadership, there's that creative problem solving, there's empathy. And this is something that a lot of girls don't realize, and it's bringing it to their attention. Especially an easy way to do this is to recognize the way that they help smaller kids like learn how to do something. Little kids, for some reason, is such a safe way for them to practice leadership. And I know I've talked about this example before, but in my summer camps, just as a reminder, these two girls who have been in Girls Positivity Club several years decided that they wanted to take a different role and become a leader in the club by being a volunteer. And they both just thrived. And really, what they did in our camps is just help the girls with their cooking, with some problem solving, with anything. And really, it was them being seen in that role and looked up to by the other kids that really made this stick for them. And their parents were amazed by how they were carrying themselves differently that night, every day after camp. And this was only a week of the summer. So these opportunities can be kids in the neighborhood, like showing them how to draw something with sidewalk chalk. It can be babysitting. It can be in your church or, religious organization maybe that you go to is like, you can have opportunities for them to be the example and lead in a way. Even speaking up about something is such a powerful way for them to lead. And it might be helping someone get what they need, or it might be asking for help, or it might be showing someone how to do something. So if they're good at something, and it doesn't have to be a little kid, it could be an older person or it could be someone their age. It's like, oh, I know how to do that. You want me to show you? I'd love to show you. And having little moments like that really build over time. And it's about having a lot of those experiences, but also not worrying if they don't come all the time either. So, like I said, those girls had such a powerful experience just in 1 week of volunteering at camp. And I'm just going to go ahead and plug volunteering. Volunteering is a great thing to teach your kids to do. And it doesn't always mean it has to look the same way. If they love animals, you can contact the local animal shelter, and there are normally age limits, but there are different things that you can do. So I worked with a girl 1 year who was younger than she could be to volunteer and work directly with, dogs or whatever, or cats. But they had what was called an animal socializer, which means they needed someone to play with the cats. And she loved cats. And this is something that she like possibly wanted to be a veterinarian and things like that. And so this was a perfect opportunity. And I worked with her mom on finding out how she could get involved in it. And that was a way that she wanted to be a leader, is by giving back to the community and the animals by doing this certain thing. So it doesn't always have to look the same, but just providing those different experiences can really help lift her up, especially by recognizing things that she has done. And it can even be just something that's like, wow, you really showed your brother or sister how to figure out how to build that fort in the living room or the backyard or whatever they were doing. And that was being a leader. It's just pointing those things out to her naturally as they happen. And then always also providing her with some opportunity to get into that and to be in different types of leadership roles. The E in lead is to empower her to embrace failure. And I've been talking about this a lot lately because it's been coming up a lot with the girls, and it's embracing it. Embracing it. If you don't like the word failure, that was last week's episode, talked about embracing failure is like challenge, not being afraid of a challenge and using it to empower yourself to get better in a certain area, and to know that it's part of the journey and it's part of the learning process of improving as a person. And every person in leadership has experienced failure in some way. So it's giving examples again of challenges that you've overcome, people that are in the family or people that she knows personally, is really talking about that. And I talked about this in the last episode. If you haven't listened, just go back and listen. But just briefly, is not only drawing attention to challenges, but providing that space. So in Girls Positivity Club, we do yays every day. I talk about this all the time. There's a yay in every day. So what's your good? This could be your check-in. Like, what was something that made you smile today? And then maybe opening it up for embracing those challenges. Like, is there a challenge that you're proud that you worked through today? And so there's a way that you can say you're proud you're working through it, or was there something that felt hard today but you kept going? It's making it framed in the way that they are working through it, instead of being like, what was your biggest challenge today? Yes, you can say that, there's nothing wrong with it, but saying, oh, okay, that was a challenge, taking it a step further and being like, how could you grow from that, or what did you learn from that? And maybe it's like, oh, I learned that I need to practice my multiplication a little bit better because I got stuck in this one step of a problem or whatever, and would you actually help me learn my facts a little bit better? And so it's opening up also that, again, asking for help is a good way to empower her, or say, would you like some help in this? Or do you feel like you're figuring it out and you have an idea of what you need? And so again, it's that open communication, and it's really helping her embrace and use it as empowerment. Like, oh, you're getting so much better. I could tell you were getting faster, or you were really thinking about this, or you really stood up for yourself in this way. So it's again pointing those things out and having that open communication and conversation with her about it. And then the A in lead is amplify female role models. I've talked about this so much lately, and I'm going to keep talking about it because it's such a powerful thing to do. And again, the most important part is to make sure it's someone she connects with. So not necessarily someone that you do, or that you just find out like, oh, who are famous women in history? Yes, there's power in that, in exposing her to the women in history. I think there's so much power in that, especially in books and things, but also someone she admires or relates to. And the number one person that comes up right now, like it or not, is Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift has been a leader in so many ways. So whether you like her music or not, or agree with how she is or not, she is a leader in the girls' lives. And a lot of the girls really, really love her. And they love her music. They love what she's about. They know things about her family. And the story that you can come up with Taylor Swift, with Beyonce, with whoever it would be that your daughter connects with. Simone Biles, I've mentioned before, Serena Williams, Venus Williams has a great story too, is picking someone that she connects with. And Taylor Swift, bringing up that it hasn't always been easy for her. And sometimes the public likes to focus just on breakups and like joking about how when you date her that there's a breakup song that's going to come out of it and all this stuff. It's actually a strength because she's using her pain to express herself, and as a positive outlet in a way, even though, again, you can have your own opinion about it. But I think it's really cool how, even if you think of the Kanye incident where she was getting her first, music award, and this was when she was only 19 years old, and she's getting ready to accept the award, and he just burst onto the stage and basically puts her down in front of everybody, saying she didn't deserve the award. And what I read about it is that it really rocked her self-esteem. It really made her feel like she wasn't worthy of getting that award. And it was such a shock to her that he did that to her publicly. But she could have let that hold her back. She could have quit music. She could have decided that, you know what, he's right. But she didn't. She decided to use that as her power and as motivation. And same thing with people. When people have such negative opinions about her, even with the NFL, they're like, oh, she's ruining football. And there is that perspective, but also I know for myself, I loved watching football with my dad and going to Colts games with my dad. And if one of my favorite singers would, all of a sudden be part of the NFL because she's dating one of the players, it would be a cool connection for me. And so she's even said in interviews, like, I don't know how much they're showing me on TV, and I'm not going to stop supporting my boyfriend because people think that I am on TV too much. And I don't go for fame and to get noticed. I go to support my boyfriend. But it's like she's introduced a whole new population to football, and where some girls have been more open to watching it because of that. And I think that that's really what it's about, is finding your daughter's person that she really admires, even if you don't always agree with it. I know when I was growing up, I listened to music that my parents didn't normally listen to or didn't necessarily like. But if I could find a story in it that would help me, it would really help me process what I was going through. And it would normalize that person and make them feel more relatable and real. If I found out that instead of giving up and not doing music anymore or never taking risks, she decided to be her own advocate and to use her art as her own source of power and for good, and she has done a lot of shifts in her music. In the 1989 album, she tried a whole new genre. So she was a country artist at one time, and she had to believe in herself and show other girls and women that you can pivot and you can do other things. And there are so many examples of that aside from music that you can find, and really just investigate, who is your daughter really paying attention to right now. If it's an influencer, you need to go watch that influencer's videos, even if they make you cringe and you don't necessarily agree with what they're saying. It would be really insightful for you to watch some of the videos. Or if it is a player that your daughter looks up to, let's say she's an athlete, or if she is really into cooking or really into art or really into music, whatever it would be, finding the person that she really admires and finding out about that person. And if there are male people who are in that role that she admires, like, still watching it, but then finding some women and girls that are in that same industry that are kind of related. So it may sound like it's going to take a long time, but Google is your friend. Google it and just see what comes up and just spend a few minutes. And if your daughter really connects with books, you can find a book on pretty much anyone. And there are lots of really good videos and documentaries on a lot of people too that are surprising. So, yeah, just do a little bit of homework with it, but in a way that you might think it's going to take a little bit of time. And it might take you 15 minutes or something, which to me is well worth it. Even if it took a little bit longer, it's going to create that bonding experience with your daughter, even if it's an author, and learning about, maybe your daughter loves to write, and it's learning about her favorite author and learning about what are the struggles that this author had in writing this series that she loves, or what are some challenges that this author faced. I mean, J.K. Rowling alone faced homelessness and mental health things and a lot of challenges. And I mean, she created Harry Potter. So there's always a way to get through. It's just finding that connection point. And she's really going to appreciate the fact that you know something about someone that she really admires, and it'll create another warm connection between you, and will also give you an opportunity to talk about that person and their leadership and how it could relate to your daughter. And then the last one is the D in lead, which is develop leadership in small ways. So this could be at home, this could be in a smaller setting, like I mentioned earlier, this could be in your neighborhood, it could be at a volunteer opportunity, it could be at your church, it could be anywhere really. And it's developing that leadership in small ways. So if you do, I know this is rare these days, but if you do eat dinner as a family, maybe she is in charge of a certain part of the dinner, or she sets the table, or she gathers the ingredients for this certain thing, or you let her choose something. Like, why don't you choose what we have as a side dish and we can make it together, or you can do the recipe, and I can be here to support you. And even if it's, why don't you choose the playlist in the car, and having the agreement that no matter what, we're going to listen to it. No one's going to complain. That I know it's easier said than done sometimes, but just thinking of little ways that she could lead. And I've talked about this before, is planning a family outing or a family activity. So on Friday nights in my family, we always have pizza night. And maybe it's deciding what kind of pizza you're going to have, or maybe it's deciding if you eat pizza out, we make ours at home. We just enjoy it. And it's just such a fun thing. My husband and I, it's like our bonding thing that we do. But my son also likes to cook, so he can get involved sometimes too. Um, Maybe it's picking the movie. Maybe if you have a family movie night, it's they pick the movie, and they think about just what everybody would like, or they get to decide what they would like, and they tell why. Like, why did you want to pick this movie? And so it's also providing those little moments in different settings. So it's maybe talking to her about, would you ever like to, show leadership in your activity? How could you do that? Could you talk to your instructor or your coach and see if you could lead a warm up? Or would you like to? So just asking her, what are some ways where you would like to practice leadership, where it would feel like a stretch, but it wouldn't be so far out of your comfort zone. And maybe it is in school. Maybe it's talking to the teacher about, I'd really like to be in charge of this certain thing. I know in the classroom, I had a pet turtle named Athena, and the kids loved to take care of Athena. They read her books, they would clean her tank, they would do all kinds of things to be a leader with her. And so the kids and girls especially take a lot of pride in having those opportunities. And it's really asking her, what are some small ways that you'd like to start practicing being a leader? Or it's making it more natural and helping provide some of those opportunities and suggesting some things. So I think leadership, really what we really need to hit home with our girls, is that it's not about perfection. It's not about being perfect. It's not about being the best at something. It's about not picking the easy thing because you know that you're going to be really good at it, and never pushing yourself out of your comfort zone to lead. So maybe it's super easy to do something at home. And then as she gets better at doing that, it's taking a step out of her comfort zone and maybe trying it in the neighborhood. And then maybe it's trying it in her activity. And then maybe it's trying it at school. And so it's making all these small, consistent steps and ways that she can practice leadership. And then she's going to feel more comfortable doing it. And it's going to become something that is more natural to her. Some people never really truly feel it fully as being natural, but they still will be put in those positions of leadership. And that's really what we want for our girls, is we want them to have that perseverance. We want them to have that authenticity, to find leadership that feels good to them, and to know that they don't have to be a certain way to be a leader. And also that setbacks are part of that journey. Is you might try something and lead it and it doesn't go well, and that's okay. It's going to help you grow in new ways, and maybe the next time you try it a different way. And it's also letting her know that girls can be leaders even when they feel unsure, by taking control of your own story, and being like, you know what? I'm not normally the leader in this situation, but I'd like to try. And this is a way that I think I could really help. I'm really good at listening to others. And so maybe what I could do is this. And again, you can help her brainstorm ways that would be in maybe a strength area, but in a way that pushes her a little bit out of her comfort zone to try a new way of leading in that particular area. So I hope this is helpful. If you, again, would send this to another parent of a girl, caregiver of a girl who it could help, I would really appreciate it, because the whole purpose of this podcast is to get it into more ears of people that it could help. And that's really what this all is about, is us linking arms and helping raise that generation of confident girls, because I know what I want in the future is for girls to know that they can lead and they can be leaders in lots of different ways. And it doesn't always have to be a certain way, or it doesn't have to be boys, or it doesn't have to be men. It can be women. It can be a variety. There's nothing wrong with having some male leadership too, but I personally want to see more girls leading in the future. And I know you want that for your daughter as well. So thank you for listening. If you have an idea for a show topic, please feel free to send me a DM on any of the social medias, which is Girls Positivity Club. And until next time, keep raising those confident leaders. You can do this, and your daughter can too. See you next time. Thanks for joining another empowering episode of the Raising Confident Girls podcast. Share today's insights with caregivers and friends, building beautiful relationships with strong girls. Hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. We're not just a podcast, we're a community. Follow Girls Positivity Club on social media for more empowering content on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. This podcast empowers you, supporting incredible girls. Let's create strong, beautiful relationships with the girls in our lives. I appreciate you listening today. Stay confident, stay connected. Until next time, keep raising those confident girls. You've got this.